This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day, carefully crafted for you by humans. So meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Alrighty. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fully Managed Podcast, the podcast where we discuss marketing and business tips to help assist you on your business journey. I'm your host, Shannon, Penji's partnership coordinator, and I'm joined here today with a very special guest, Jarod Spiewak from CometFuel. Thank you so much for coming on with me today.
No, thanks so much for having me.
I appreciate that. So could you start by introducing yourself a little bit? Tell us a little bit about you, anything that you deem relevant to your professional journey, and all the in between. You can even share a fun fact that is irrelevant to your professional journey. That's always fun. Just
Yeah, sure.
all of the good stuff.
Yeah, so my name's Jarod Spiewak. I'm the founder and lead strategist of CometFuel. CometFuel is a revenue marketing agency that helps service-based and SaaS businesses typically scale to about $5 to $10 million a year. And we're doing that through advertising, generally most of the time through Google Ads. The background of the company is I got started in the marketing world when I was 14. I basically I graduated high school early. I graduated high school when I was 16, finished college when I was 18. And so because I was doing that faster, I had to figure out how to make money. So I Googled, like a lot of people do, how to make money online, full of nothing but scams. So that was super helpful, but it got me to understand that, hey, there's a world of like online marketing. And I was a kid that grew up on the internet. So that seemed interesting to me. And I ended up starting writing SEO content online. That led to me doing a little bit over a year in corporate real estate marketing, led to me working for a law firm marketing agency for about 2 years in an SEO role, became the lead SEO strategist. And then that transitioned in 2018. I founded an agency that was originally called Blue Dog Media that focused on SEO. In 2020 to 2021, over time, we started to introduce Google Ads as a service, and we noticed that our clients were able to grow faster and easier through the ad channels and more predictably than SEO. And a big challenge that we had at the time was really being able to measure results for clients because everybody hired us to make more money. And with SEO, the attribution is a little bit more difficult. Like, it holds a very special place in my heart, but when working with clients, it's very difficult to explain, hey, this is what Google's just feeling, and maybe it'll fix itself in 3 months, maybe 6 months, maybe it won't. Who knows? Let's just hope and wait. Not a very confidence boosting conversation to have with somebody. And so we noticed that we were, one, making more money from ads, two, clients seemed to be happier. So we transitioned from being focused on SEO to an ad agency. And then that kind of transformed into a big focus on revenue marketing and attribution and really being able to prove that, hey, if you spend $1, unless we can prove to you that that resulted in X amount of revenue, then it just simply doesn't count.
And then when you get to CometFuel? Like, what?
Yeah, so you
Right, my brand.
you're doing
With transition in 2020 to 2021 is when we rebranded to CometFuel. So we rebranded from Blue Dog Media to CometFuel with that transition. So in 2020, it kind of happened on the back end, and then 2021, we kind of made a public announcement to everybody, like, hey, the name has changed, the website's now up, and in 2020, clients were kind of made aware that, one, we were changing the name because Blue Dog Media was a name I literally pulled out of a hat. I was like, okay, agencies tend to be called animal plus name. Let's figure something out so that I can, not spend the next 6 months just worrying about a name.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Well, what inspired you to create that name?
I just bought a domain that I like the name of because I'm not that creative. I'm a technical person. I'm not a creative. And I knew, I actually got the idea from a guy named Ryan Stewart who runs Webris. And what he did when he created his business name is he just went online and found a domain name that he liked and he bought it. I was like, oh, that seems like an interesting strategy. So I did the same exact thing. There are plenty of websites that'll find like brandable domain names. And so I put it in front of a bunch of people. I said, hey, like, these are the 5 that I'm interested in. Like, everybody vote, what you like. And then, that was sent to the team, that was sent to clients, that was sent to, friends and family. And CometFuel ended up being on top. So that's what we ended up purchasing. And that just made it really simple where I didn't have to think that hard about it.
That's very interesting. I definitely understand that though, because I'm not a very creative person. And I constantly tell this to my boss when he goes, think of names for these different things, so these different segments that we want to do on the podcast. And I'm like, I'm gonna use ChatGPT. I don't my brain does not work for these types of things. Like I'm either doing comedy, like think something that I think is funny, and he does not. I'm just thinking of something very bad, and it's usually cheesy because it's funny to me, but it's not. It's probably not really funny.
Yeah, you're not allowed to turn the podcast into just a massive shitpost.
Yeah, I can't. Exactly. That's what I'm constantly thinking of. Like, I'm like, I think people would find this entertaining, but probably only my generation, and that's not really the people we're going after. So it's not really. I shouldn't be in charge of the creatives at all. It's funny that I work for a design agency, but it's not me.
Yeah, no, I feel you there. That's why we brought on a creative director last year, and that's been really helpful for us because I have a good amount of technical knowledge, but when it comes to anything creative, like people tend to be either strong on one of the two sides, and so it is really nice to have that blend of both technical and creative, because creatives are an entirely different breed of people. And like,
Oh, yeah.
I don't understand how their brain works, but it's great.
Yeah, it's not. I can copy really easily. Like I can create art, but I can only like draw active inspiration from something else, but it's never I can't create original content out of my head. That never happened. It's very difficult. But yeah, I can completely understand that. It's nice to have that even balance. How do you okay, that brings a question that I have then. How do you work with the creative director in a way that you're balancing out both the technical side and the creative side? Like, how do you, I don't know, how do you ensure that they're, feeling creative and being able to create new stuff, but also your influence also creates success for them?
Yeah, so we had originally a small creative team. We had copywriters, designers, developers, and I was kind of managing that entire process. And what I recognized was I knew I couldn't give really good direction. I knew I couldn't give really good feedback aside from like, hey, like, when I click this button, it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. Like this is broken. Like please fix it. Like
Mhm.
that's as detailed as I could really get. And so when I brought on a creative director, I'm a big fan of objective based hiring. So not just hiring someone based off of the job role, but saying like, this is specifically what I need you to do because a creative director just isn't a creative director. And the one that we went with has a lot of experience with managing teams and building teams and being in leadership roles. And so when she came in, it wasn't really like, okay, great. Like, what do I do now? Like, how do I be the creative director for CometFuel? It was more of, okay, great. Now that I'm here, I'm going to show you, I'm going to tell you, like, this is what I need to be doing. Like, this is how we're going to do it. And so that was really easy. The thing that I've had to learn is how to best work with creatives. And you have to find the balance between creating guardrails, but not making them too narrow. Because when you are creating something, especially from scratch, there's an infinite amount of direction that you can go, an infinite amount of ideas. And so if you just say someone like, hey, like, can you create conceptually something like this? You're just never going to get that deliverable back because it's just going to be an infinitely iterative process of going through like, oh, maybe we could do this, maybe we could do that. And so it's really important to make sure like, okay, great. Like here's the budget, here's the timeline, here's the acceptance criteria, whatever that might be, so that there is a clear direction that has to be met. There are guardrails for that project, but they're not so narrow that the creative feels that they're being choked and that they can't really express themselves or really like play around with the ideas. And I think that that's just an active balance that we're trying to really figure out because creative is the most expensive and the slowest part of the process of what we do. And so we have to be very cognizant of the budgets, but we also want to make sure that we're not just creating cookie cutter work. So it's really just a matter of guardrails and just iteratively practicing like what's too wide, what's too narrow.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's nice to have the technical side of things to create those boundaries because I think that I've noticed at least that the hardest part for creatives is when a job is so vague and there's not parameters for it because especially when you're a creative person, I can't relate, but that your mind just goes wild because there's so many options of doing things. And if someone is so vague in their approach on what they want, then they clearly want something that's more narrow than the vague approach, but they can't really narrow it down to what it is. So it's more likely that jobs will be unsuccessful or have to be edited and take longer because they can't see what they want. And that's a hard job for a creative to be able to, make sure that what they're doing is quote unquote correct for the client.
Yeah, and I think that what's also important is where my position comes in a lot of times is more of a strategy role. And part of my job is pitching those ideas to the client. And so for me, I'm that kind of intermediary in a lot of ways where it's you go out and create the plan, and I'll figure out a way to turn that into a deck to pitch it to the client in a way that they can understand, in a way that they can approve. And if there are things that are not right, not quite where we want them to be yet and whatnot, I can make sure that we're directing that in a certain way that we can kind of fix those issues on the back end before it becomes an actual issue in production, but still able to keep the project moving along to make those deadlines. And so I think that there's a real balance between having the creative team be able to have the freedom to do what they want and still being able to make sure that that's positioned and put in front of the client in a way that they can actually understand what it is that we're doing, because ultimately a lot of the clients that we're working with also aren't creative people. And so if you present something that's more conceptual, with their interpretation of that concept can be wildly different from what you might expect they or would hope that they would have an idea from that concept.
No, that definitely makes a lot of sense. What do you think is the biggest challenge when having those kinds of conversations?
Um, that's a good question. I think that when we put something in front of somebody, it's important that they see the same vision that we do, that they understand that, hey, this is the reason why we might recommend repositioning your offer. Like sometimes we're having conversations with clients and saying like, what you're putting in front of somebody just isn't that interesting. Like you're positioning yourself as being like the blandest version of something.
Mhm.
And that can work okay in instances of interruption marketing. If you're running ads on a platform like Reddit or Meta or other social channels, somebody's scrolling through their feed and they're seeing ads for tens of thousands of different companies. It might be cookware, one ad. It might be a course, another ad. It might be clothing, the next ad. But when we're predominantly running things like search ads, you're kind of doing head-to-head sales. And so a lot of conversations that we have with people is if somebody is looking for an email marketing software and they go to Google and they search it, email marketing software. Every search result there is an email marketing software. So you raising your hand saying, "Hey, we're a company that can help you with your email marketing." Uh, yeah, you and everybody else here, all you've done is say, "Hey, look, we deserve to be in this same room," but you're not really doing anything to stand out in that room. And so sometimes what's difficult to have a conversation with clients is understanding that the marketing also has to entice people, not just the sales process. And that's sometimes what we hear a lot of time is, oh, we don't want to give away anything too exciting, too interesting until they actually get on a call with us because we're afraid our competitors might see that and then steal that from us. But then what they're doing instead to protect themselves from competitors, quote unquote, they're then hurting their ability to actually generate leads or demos or signups or what have you, depending on the conversion action, because they're presenting themselves as a generic version that is making everybody feel equally indifferent about them, rather than being like, oh, like here's a unique process, like here's our proprietary system that we've created. And you just going out there and just explaining it probably isn't enough for competitors to quote unquote steal it. And if it was, then it probably wasn't that exciting in the first place.
No, I definitely completely agree with that. I do have a lot of conversations about like competitors and how people sometimes are overly concerned with them as agencies. And I think that there are hundreds and thousands of agencies in the country at this moment in time. And I think that to be so concerned about someone like stealing your approach to things is kind of ridiculous at this point because, one, it's kind of hard to even uniquely do something at this point because so many people have a similar strategy. But I think to be able to sell yourself as unique is still possible. And your approach to things, as long as it's successful, and you're doing it in the way that you think is the best way for your team, then it's okay if it's comparable to someone else many states away. I mean, as long as you're able to grab this person's attention, like a potential client's attention, then that's kind of all that matters, as long as like once they are a client, you're doing successful work. I think that if you do have a truly unique approach to doing things, if someone else can also replicate that, like you said, then maybe it wasn't really that unique in the first place if someone can just copy it.
And not only that, but even if you're doing the same exact thing, you can position it in such a way that it appears more unique. Because there might be things that competitors just aren't explaining, like something that's especially for things like professional services. What's unknown for a lot of people is they don't have the in the trench experience. Like people generally know vaguely what's the process of like replacing a roof. Like, okay, like I have a roof that's going to get gone, and then a new roof is going to be placed there. Okay, I can understand that. But what about if somebody's working with like a lawyer? Well, aside from like what I see on TV, like I probably don't understand a whole lot about the legal process or how a law firm works, or like who am I actually going to be talking to? Like what's the difference between a lawyer and a paralegal and a case manager and the intake specialist and all these other roles? And so sometimes doing something as simple as here's the process that literally every other company does for this service, but we're just going to actually explain that process step by
Mhm.
step for you. And now it seems a lot different. And you then put a name behind that, and now it's like, here's our product for our service. And it might be like 90% the same of what somebody else does. But when people are looking, they click on, 3 different ads, they look at 3 different competitors and they go, what's the difference here? And they go, oh, this accounting firm says free consultation. This accounting firm says free consultation. This accounting firm says get your I'm just going to make something up, get your, real estate safety tax plan or something like that. It's like, oh, like it might be the same underlying fundamentals for that tax plan or that analysis of that real estate investor's taxes and portfolio and structure and whatnot. But the way that they've positioned that now makes it seem like, hey, here's something that I can get from these guys that I can't get from the other two. These two are just offering free consultations. These guys are offering some sort of plan or program. And so that's a lot of interesting. And then you might be able to take that standard conversations that you have with somebody that you're already doing, turn that into a nice looking deliverable. And now you have something tangible that somebody is getting as a result of that consultation. So that free consultation now turns into something that is much more tangible. It's, hey, there's this a clear process that you're going to walk away from this conversation with a deliverable in hand. That's part of this overall program or system that we have that you can't get anywhere else, because you can either be different or better. Everybody wants to be better, but here's the reality. It's really hard for the consumer to tell what's better. And when you try to communicate that, we have more reviews, we have a bigger team, we've been in business for longer. Those are really weak differentiators. And so it's much easier and much faster to get ahead by being different in the eyes of the consumer by being better, or them being better, rather.
No, I 100% agree with that. I think the way that if you're able to educate when you're offering your services as well, I think that's something that can really convince a consumer to be interested in your product or service, specifically because they might not, yeah, as you said about the lawyer specific example, people might not understand this process. And if they not only have an understanding of it, but know the way in which you're doing it, like they're educated and they understand that you're doing it that way, I think that is more persuasive than just something like an offer or a discount or something like that, because they don't understand what they're getting in that discount. And to have a better understanding of it also builds a level of trust already between, like, I'm offering you this knowledge, but I'm not getting anything from it directly other than you maybe being more interested in my service. And I think that people do trust companies more that provide that level of education to understand the process rather than just trying to grab them with gimmicks.
Yeah. So ultimately, what somebody feels and what they're thinking is that you figured out something that everybody else hasn't. Whether what the reality of that is different, but it's something that like I hear all the time, because like we have names for our products and services. And even if we go like, hey, like 80% of this is roughly the same process that a lot of other people use, but because we explain it step by step and we go into detail, like here's what the deliverable is going to look like, here's what we're considering in that process, where other people are like, yeah, we're just doing competitor research. And we're like, this is what we're looking out for. This is how we're doing it. This is what we're considering. All of a sudden, it seems like we have a way more detailed process just because we're just explaining it. And like, sure, like we could point to differentiators on the technical side. But here's the thing, like people aren't going to understand what the difference is if we use tool number 1 or tool number 2 to research competitors, and what the pros and cons of those data sets of the tools are, and how they collect their data, and how, like, nobody cares. Like what they do care about is, oh, it looks like they're doing a lot of work that I perceive as valuable, and they're buying based off of perception, not the reality. Make of that what you will, but it's based off of how they perceive what is going to happen. What they perceive that value to be is going to determine if they're going to move forward. And ultimately, what you're trying to do with your marketing is build momentum towards that offer. You're trying to get people excited for it. And if you're familiar with funnels or multi-step pages, this is exactly what that's doing. Is it's trying to build more and more momentum to that harder offer to get people excited. Like that. Like think of like going to like a concert or something. Like, do you go to a concert and doors are at 7 and exactly 7 a.m. like the headliner comes out and things are crazy? Like, no, of course not. Why? Because the momentum hasn't been built. The audience isn't ready for that larger offer. What happens is you get in, doors are at 7. If there's a bar, people are kind of like walking around, like there's a lot of space in between people. There's, probably just music playing on the speakers. There's a bunch of stage hands like setting everything up. And then the opener comes out, and the levels on the audio mix is okay, and people start to crowd around it. Some people leave because they're just there to see that local band that they love. But as the bigger and bigger bands come out, the crowd gets tighter, the momentum builds, people get more and more excited, and then like the lights go out, everything's silent, and then all of a sudden the band goes on stage and everybody gets crazy, and then the band starts playing, and you wouldn't have gotten that reaction from people if you had not built that momentum before. And that's a lot of what you're able to do with better offers. Is you're saying, hey, like, come and download this item, or get my top of funnel offer that's going to make you interested in what we're doing. And then from there, I want to present you with a call that we can have that you're going to get this deliverable. And it's like, wow, like that's actually kind of interesting. Like nobody wants to get on a sales call with you. Like sales calls suck. Like salespeople suck. Like nobody enjoys it. But if it's like, oh, there's actually value from me, like I'm lowering my risk that I'm just going to get on a call with somebody who's going to, try to sell me like a used car. They're going to be super aggressive. Maybe I don't like them. Maybe they're going to like twist my arm and convince me to do something that I don't actually want to do. But, oh, this actually seems valuable. This seems like even if I don't move forward, I'm going to come out of this ahead. Now that seems interesting. Now that momentum's built. Now I'm on that call. The momentum still has to be built. You don't want to fumble things right at the 5-yard line. But now that you're on that call, the momentum still has to be built towards that offer. And that is perceived to be much more exciting and much better than just saying, hey, great, theoretically, we're an accountant that can help you reduce your taxes. Book a consultation call. Maybe we can help you. Maybe we can't. Like, okay. It's a flip up scenario.
I really appreciate the concert analogy for the marketing funnel, because I do well, one, I love that there's always analogies and metaphors in marketing. Like I love seeing them on LinkedIn, but I also think that they better explain things to people outside of marketing as a I don't know, like that makes complete sense. That's exactly how the marketing funnel works. You have to build momentum in order to get someone to be interested in something. It's just like, I think that is why the educational approach works so well sometimes, because it's just, I could get interested in buying something that I did not care about initially before being educated on that topic. And this like happens so often to me. It was not previously concerned in something, and a really good marketing, like there was a really good marketing approach to something or an ad where they educated me on something that I did not care about previously. And now that I'm educated on it, I'm like, oh, maybe I should buy this product because I might have this health condition that I never even knew about. But now I feel like I have this health condition because this ad convinced me that I do.
Yeah, I think it's important to keep in mind that you're marketing to people and not robots. Even though it's all done online, I think people often forget like these are humans that are evaluating things and are making decisions based off of what they believe is best for them, not based off of what they believe is best for you. And so, yes, it's best for you to get people onto these consultation calls as quickly as possible. But what might be best for them is a much slower introduction, where it might be get them onto the mailing list, because you're selling something that is scary for people to commit to. It's high cost, it's high risk, it's whatever that might be. And so they need to be nurtured over time. And, yes, that might mean that you get them into an email funnel and that you're creating these PDFs and deliverables in this email series that goes out to people over the course of 30 to 60 days to get people onto that initial call. And that might, seem annoying and inconvenient to have to do because you want them on that call today. But how respectful or from their perspective, how much do you respect them if you're like, I don't want to take that time to get them to be comfortable to actually get on a call with me. I only want to deal with people that are already comfortable. Now, there's a time and a place for that strategy. Sometimes budgets are tight and you need to focus on people who are the lowest part of the funnel, and that makes sense. But eventually you're going to run out of those people and to branch out to other people, just hoping that if you just shove yourself in front of people often enough that they're going to be willing to kind of jump on that call with you or to pay you for a demo or even be like, oh, I want to have a free trial for this product. Even that can be risky because maybe that free trial requires me to put in my credit card. Do I trust this company to not just charge my card? Do I trust this company to not email me 300 times a day, to call me 600 times a day? Do I even want to give them my email address in the first place? That's still risky. And so you have to make sure that people are actually feel comfortable. People buy from those who they know, like, and trust. And if you can build that people are familiar with you, whether that's through nurturing, whether that's through education, whether that's through like a VSL where it becomes a lot more personable, they begin to know you more, they begin to like you more, they begin to trust you more, they become a lot more open to whatever it is that your offer ultimately is, whether that's a very easy offer like an email address, which you don't have to do a whole lot of credibility building in order to offer that to somebody, versus, hey, pay me $5,000 on this landing page right online, and we've never had a conversation before. There are people who are able to do that because they've been able to, even if it's just on that single page, build enough trust, credibility, authority, so on and so forth, that they were able to get that done. And so you still have to go through that process of making people comfortable to take that action. Just putting in front of someone and hoping for the best just is only going to work so often.
Yeah. Well, what do you think is the most crucial part of this process? Like, say if that it was left out, then it would just fall apart. Like you'd never turn a lead into a client.
The offer. So at the end of the day, like, that's the most important. So with paid media, it's typically you're going to have your traffic. So whoever you're actually getting in front of, let's just take Google Ads as a platform. As soon as somebody clicks on the ad, Google's no longer responsible for what happens after that. All you're doing with Google is you're buying traffic. Then they're going to come to the creative. Now, technically, the creative is also the ad that they saw before they clicked. But for this example, I'm just going to say it's the landing page. Your copy, your design, your development. People don't have high expectations for design. As long as it doesn't look awful, people will be okay with the design. Development, pretty straightforward as well. Do the buttons do what they're supposed to when I interact with them? Okay, great. Like, people are going to be fine if things are a little bit janky. As long as it loads quickly, as long as the buttons function, it's going to be okay. The copy is going to be the most important part of that creative. But what that copy is doing is it's positioning your offer. It's having a certain emotional impact to say, hey, this is our justification for why you should take that action. Like, here's why you should be willing to book a free consultation, or here's why you should be willing to give us your email address, so on and so forth. But ultimately, what it is that you're offering that person is going to have the biggest impact on whether they want to move forward. Because if somebody doesn't feel comfortable at all to get on a sales call, so for example, let's say you're a software company and people just don't want to get on demos with you for whatever reason. They're like, I don't even know the pricing. Why would do I really want to get on this demo call? It's going to be 15 minutes. It's going to be 60 minutes. What does it actually look like? Am I going to waste a bunch of time, not be able to afford it, etc.? That's what your offer is. And so you could have a great VSL, you could have great copy, but if fundamentally people are like, I'm just not that interested unless I know the price. And if that's the point of resistance, part of your offer is just flawed fundamentally. That's going to have the biggest impact for people wanting to move forward or not moving forward. Where if you could convince people like, hey, here's our email marketing software. We guarantee 100% open rates, and that 100% of people who open it will click on it, and that 100% of people who will click on it will buy from you. And if they don't do that, we'll guarantee you $1 billion in exchange. Why would anybody say no to that? And also here, by the way, here's like our contract that legally makes us obliged to do this. You like, okay, like, I don't care if that company just got created yesterday. That seems like a great deal. Would there be red flags? This is probably a scam, absolutely, because it's a different example. But the point is, if the offer is strong enough, people won't care how long you've been in business. They won't care that you have limited reviews, because what you're offering is just so enticing that they want to move forward. Everything else can be much weaker. But if you have great targeting on your traffic, but your creative isn't good, your offer isn't good, it's not going to work. If you have great creative, but you're targeting the wrong people, it's not going to work.
I would also debate, and I think you touched on this briefly, that clear and concise information about what you're offering is really important. Like, the offer can be great, but if you don't have a clear understanding of what they are or who they are, it's not really going to work. The amount of like websites that I've viewed that I do not understand what they actually do when it comes down to it is absolutely absurd. I'm not going to spend more time investigating that. I'm just not going to use their service.
Yeah, I definitely run into that sometimes where, and sometimes we'll be working actively with clients. Obviously, I can't say the company name, but we were working with a business, and I want to say we worked with them for just under a year, and I still have no idea what it is that they do. Like, conceptually, I kind of understand, but the biggest issue that we had working on that project is the copy and the offers were all like way too vague and kind of conceptual. And yes, it talked about results, but then we came from like, how do you actually do that? And it's like, sure, like I kind of have an idea, but like, can you explain to me like step by step how this is done? It's like, I love that you have so many great testimonials and case studies and you're talking on all these big stages for the industry. And it's very clear that people who work with you get great results, but I don't know how to tell people what it is that you're actually doing to understand how to help them understand if this is even a solution that's applicable to them. And so, like, sure, conceptually, this helps you, gives a B2B offer, and it helps you grow your business in a specific way. But how do I know that I don't already have a company that's doing the things that you're doing? And so that was the biggest issue going through all this creative and all these VSLs and all these top of funnel offers. Just still didn't really know what it was that they did. And I have a feeling that their prospective customers also didn't really understand. And that's obviously not a very good place to be in, because how are you expected to make an informed decision when you don't really understand what decision it is that you're making?
Yeah, I think that you can have a, really appealing offer, but if someone doesn't understand exactly how you're doing what you're doing, it's not really going to be a good selling. And it's surprising how many people are very vague with the services that they provide. And I understand that it's probably around that level of secrecy that a lot of agencies have for the worry that competitors will copy them. But again, I think that's, we just with that, I think that's just not really something that people should be concerned about. They should really be more concerned about their customers and what they are looking for. And if you're unclear about what you have, then people probably aren't gonna continue to look at your website. They're probably just gonna leave.
Yeah, and I think that for agencies specifically, it kind of comes into like two different camps. You have like the one camp who they also don't really understand what it is that they're doing necessarily. It may be, hey, like I saw a course, like I bought a course and I got this and I've heard all the buzzwords and now I'm reflecting I'm kind of like taking all those buzzwords that I've heard, I'm putting it in front of somebody because that's what convinced me to move forward. So surely this will convince other people to move forward.
Oh
And you're
no.
like, you come across with something, it's like, yes, our ad strategy uses generative AI to get better results. And it's like, okay, like what tools and how, and like, how does this do better than what you're doing manually? And it's like, but it's AI. It's like, okay, cool. But like, what and how? And it's like AI. Okay, cool. But, and you just kind of get that back and forth. And, you don't have to be so tactical to go, here's how we do keyword research and here's the tools and here's the metrics that we look at and whatnot. A lot of that's going to go over most buyers' head, but just understanding something like, oh, the way that it works is people search for something on Google. You're essentially raising your hand and saying, hey, I have a solution for that problem. And then when they interact with that ad, they're then being redirected to a page on your website or a landing page. And here's the difference between the two, etc. That for so many people is a much better example, because there are people that just haven't really just thought about how Google works, to be honest. And so they're like, why am I worried about like this conceptually of this AI? And like, yeah, sure, like you can get me like a 10x ROI allegedly according to your website, but like, how do you actually do that? Like, how does it work? And what they're missing oftentimes is just that understanding, that baseline knowledge of, okay, great. So there are these things called keywords. And when people search on Google, those keywords determine if our ads are going to show or not, because some people just think that Google chooses entirely what your ads run for, which, depending on what you're using, can be true sometimes. But with traditional search ads, you still have that control over those keywords. And that might be something that businesses that have been around for 5, 10, 15 years, not all of them still understand that that's how that works. And sometimes that's all it takes to go, oh, wow, I've had like 4 sales calls with the agencies before. I just didn't even understand that really basic concept because they were all talking like high in the sky and like theoretically this is what could happen as a result. And theoretically this is what we're doing. But here's the actual trench work. Here's the actual groundwork. Here's what the deliverable looks like. Here's how the system functions. It's just a lot more tangible to people.
I think simplistic language is something that's really important in that as well, because I think that you can actually explain something very thoroughly that a marketer would understand, but not the average person that's looking to buy your services. And I think that a lot of marketing has like this exclusive language that people don't understand conceptually, like if without looking it up. And I think people have different words for things too, where other marketers might not even understand what they're really talking about. And I think that's something that is very prevalent in how people advertise their services. And I think it's not like a customer-centered approach when they're doing that. Whereas they're just kind of thinking something conceptually as their job position and not for leads or clicks. And I think that that's something that is very important in that process as well, is like not only clearly explaining something in your perspective, but in a customer's perspective.
Yeah, because I mean, ultimately, like it sounds fancy if you come out there and say, we're gonna A/B test your landing pages using Bayesian statistics to drive incremental growth to help lower your CAC, and it's like,
I
okay,
don't even know what that means. Thank you.
and it's like, yeah, sure, that sounds fancy,
Cool.
but like ultimately, like explain to someone, be like, okay, like here's A/B testing is like we're gonna put things in front of somebody and measure which version of that thing gets us better performance, however we define performance. Like this statistical method, like there are different approaches to statistics, and this is the method that we use. Here are the pros and cons. And as a result, we expect that while these tests happen over time, those wins are going to compound on each other. So making variations that have a 5% improvement, that is a small incremental growth, but having that 5% improvement on top of an additional 5%, 5%, 5% can lead to a substantial amount of growth over time. We can debate, the problems with incremental growth, et cetera, but that explanation is a lot more tangible to people when you're able to explain, like, conceptually, here's how the statistics works in the example of like flipping a coin. You flip a coin 5 times, you get heads 5 times. How confident are you that every time you flip that coin is going to land on heads? Not very, because you could just sit there and probably get that in 10, 15 minutes yourself. Versus if you flip that coin 1,000 times and you get heads all 1,000 times, you probably would have been very dubious of that coin being fair long before you got those 1,000 flips. And now we're talking about conceptually Bayesian statistics, which is more like how I'm going to confuse some parts of frequent distance Bayesian statistics, but basically you're basically saying, how confident am I in this result? And that's what we're trying to communicate to people, is that we're going to test to a certain amount of confidence, depending on how much data we have. If we are working with smaller data sets, we're going to move faster, but with less confidence. And if we have larger data sets, we can be more confident in our decisions, just because we flip that coin, 10,000 times, not 100 times. But if we have to make a decision off of 100 coin flips, sometimes that's best because we don't have the budget or the time to flip it 10,000 times to be super confident. But talking about confidence intervals and priors and, minimal detectable effects and stuff like that just isn't going to be very productive for a lot of people.
Yeah, of course. I definitely agree. I think that I just completely lost my train of thought. I hate when this happens. I'll have them edit that out, guys. Okay, before I forget this, I want to ask you a fun question as our last question. We're a little over time, but I think that it's important to ask a fun question. We're marketers. We got to get out of our marketing brain sometimes. Okay. If you were to team up with a brand or a company, any brand or company, that would be like your dream to team up with, what would it be? And like, what would be your inspiration for a campaign with them?
Yeah. So, two good questions. So, a company that I'd love to work with one day is Close. So that's a CRM software that I've been using for years, and I've not worked with the company, but used their products for a long time. And one, I've just been a big fan of the product. I'm a big fan of the story behind it, which they were an outbound sales company, and they built this product in-house to help their own sales team. And then eventually their customers were like, hey, like, I kind of want that too. And eventually that turned into a SaaS company. The founder, Stelly, he created a ton of content on B2B sales and a ton of content on the growth of their company. And I found that to be really interesting and also really helpful for me when I was starting to I would say, get better at sales and not just, jump on calls with people and kind of hope for the best, but actually start to develop processes for, turning leads into actual sales. And I did find that content very helpful, especially on the cold emailing side of things, which we were running a lot of cold email campaigns at that time. And it helped me understand a lot of the areas where we were going wrong, and their software really helped me kind of run those campaigns in a way that was much simpler than a lot of the other software that I was trying to use out there, but still get all the results that I wanted. And, it's still our CRM today. And it's a software that I recommend to a lot of people all the time. I'm constantly checking out the website just to see what, content they're producing. So they're definitely on the list. In terms of campaigns, I honestly haven't thought that far ahead. I'd have to understand a little bit more about what they're doing today. I know that Stelly has recently come back to create a lot more content. So what would most likely work is pushing him a lot more personal branding, making sure that probably people are attracted to him and less so the company. People tend to grow affinity towards people a lot faster than they grow affinity towards brands. So I'd probably just follow what the company's been doing lately, which is pushing him more. They've been pushing some sort of like course or training stuff that I haven't really checked out yet. So yeah, I think that for like an actual campaign, I had to put a little bit more thought into it, but they've been on the list of companies I'd love to work with for years.
Well, I really hope that you get to work with them someday.
Appreciate it.
Okay, well, this is unfortunately all the time we have today, but I had a really great chat with you today, and thank you so much for giving all of your knowledge to our audience. I hope you're not worried that they're going to steal anything.
Yes, and anything I encourage it.
Well, you guys heard it here first. Steal all of his ideas. They're really good. But thank you again for joining me today. I do really appreciate it, taking time out of your day. I know agency work can be very busy, and I think that you provided a lot of valuable knowledge for everyone to listen to. So thank you so much again.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you. And thank you for everyone listening or watching. We wouldn't be here without you, so thank you. And please don't forget to like and subscribe to learn more stuff every week. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest, and to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend, and of course, subscribe.